Jump Ship, the second game in the Cardventures line by Game Rights, and the second after the very disappointing Stowaway 52, which I reviewed in my previous video. Like its predecessor, Jump Ship is a card game with a strong narrative element. The idea is actually that the game is a narrative engine that tells your story through cards by describing the situation in paragraphs printed on the cards, presenting you with decisions at the end of each card, and then based on the decision that you make, you go and pick up the card that corresponds to that decision that will lead to other decisions. Say I decide to go for 5, then I decide to go for 8, and so on and so forth. So you make decisions, pulling decisions that direct you to cards. You take the card, and the card that will direct you to other cards. So you'll form a story pile of cards that you have already used, and when the story is over, you check all of the points that you have in your story pile, and you determine your level of victory. There's a card here that helps you do that, and yeah, you have different levels of victory based on how many points you have here. You're trying to score as many points as possible. That is, you're trying to stay in the game, to move through the interconnections of the game for as long as possible, so you can score a lot of treasures. However, there are also some cards that force you to lose cards, or lose treasures, so sometimes it'll be better if you retire one card earlier, one card sooner than one card later. The game, in fact, can end in one or two ways. It may be that you have simply a text indication that tells you to go to Mermaid Beach, then the adventure is over, you count your points. It may also be that an interconnection that you have chosen leads to a card which is not in the decks of available cards anymore, it isn't here yet. Then in game terms it is said that you go overboard, and you also then swim to Mermaid Beach and you count points. Those are two ways in which you can end the game. There are also some cards that have dolphins in there. They're cards with a dolphin symbol. If you have those, then you can use them, and you can discard it to call a helpful dolphin that will take you back into the game to the Black Bounty. The Black Bounty is the pirate ship where you start your adventure, and to which occasionally you will go back, and that is your pirate ship. You start from there. These are the decks of cards represent other pirate ships that you're trying to loot. Now, clearly the story is set in the world of the pirates, but there are a couple of very odd elements here. The idea is that you're a captain of a pirate ship. Okay, that's okay. You want to retire, that's fine. But you want, before you retire, you decide to loot these other 3 ships. And we can already suspended this belief about the fact that they're all somehow parked around there. They are around your place. There are these 4 pirate ships. They look mainly empty, the other 3 pirate ships. And so you simply jump from your ship, you swim there, you try to grab some treasure, and you go back. That to me seems to be beneath the dignity of a captain. I would expect somebody who just started the business profession of being a pirate. I would expect a captain to order an assault or something. If you want to retire, I guess you want to make money without your crew knowing it. It's just a weird image here of this captain that is acting like a thief, jumping from ship to ship and stealing stuff. But this is the story. So you're trying to collect treasures which are reflected by the points that you have here. And not all cards are worth the same number of points. And well, this is the basic idea. You make decisions, you jump from ship to ship. In so doing, you collect cards. They are not all worth the same. Some cards are worth more, representing places and situations where you can get more treasure. What I like also is that you have a 5th deck of cards called the Deep Hand, and these are cards that need to be shuffled. These cards are not shuffled because you need to retrieve them easily when you're directed to one of them. These cards are shuffled, and so they present random interconnections. It means that sometimes you're forced to go to the deep end, sometimes you decide to take a chance, in which case maybe that your adventure ends prematurely if the deep end card instructs you to go to Mermaid Beach. Sometimes you have to go back to go to a specific place. So I like the random element. I like the random element that you have here, which is important, which is neat, because otherwise, if you do not have a random element, if it's simply interconnections of a decision of a paragraph to another and so on and so forth, then you could have all that you see here in a book, the story, the branching text, the interconnection of paragraphs forming the story could be printed in a book, and it would be even more functional than a deck of cards, because you would not have to reset the decks and place the cards in order at the end of a game. So I'm glad that they have this. That is an element in the game that takes advantage of the technology of the card as opposed to the technology of the book. I also like the fact that you have different levels of victory. If you watch my previous video for Stowaway 52, you know that I disliked this game because the objective was in this game simply to go through the entire deck. You needed to go through the entire deck to stay in the game, the entire deck, to go through every card to win the game, which simply meant that each decision meant very little. All you needed to do was to memorize the cards that you had already used and try to figure out a way not to repeat those. Technically, you could even ignore what the text said. Here, there is a little more of a tactical decision, because there are decisions, again, here, each decision may be, well, a decision may appear to be very stupid and then to be still useful, or very smart and lead to a card that you already used. So there isn't really a tactical sense. Thinking about the story in terms of story means very little when all you need to do is simply not to repeat cards that you already used. Here you do have that element. You're trying to avoid going to the same card twice, at least the story ends prematurely. But on the other hand, actually, there are still decisions that are a little more interesting, because you do not have to go through the entire deck. You still have to make good decisions, to collect good treasures, and then to leave at the right time, because there are also cards that may make you lose treasures. So sometimes it is a smart choice to leave as soon as possible once you have reached a certain level of victory. I like the fact that victory here can be achieved in many possible ways by combining treasures that may have been achieved through different paths, as opposed to here there's only one way that needs to be found and nothing else really works. So this game is much more thematic, although the theme is a little strange, because again we have this captain that seems to be acting like a common thief. Nevertheless, the story is more thematic, the decisions seem more interesting. Like some cards will give you some items that you can use later, some cards will take away things from you. There's just a range of actions that is fun, that is interesting, and again makes sense. The decisions that you make feel more meaningful in the world of the story than the decisions that you make in Stowaway 52. So this is not a super mega great game. If you're looking for a narrative-based game and you're willing to invest some more money and energy, then Time Stories or Legacy games are still much better. But this one is also pretty affordable, and they can be interesting if you're playing maybe with children, or in any case with young gamers, as a family, as a super mega casual family gathering. You're playing with your spouse or with other members of the family or friends that are not strong gamers. Then you'll have situations that are fun, a theme which is attractive. The cards are pretty attractive too. The production is good. You have an element of randomness which is neat, and also add some replay value, because of course once you figure out how certain interconnections work, then you could exploit them every time in the same way to obtain the same result every time, which is in any case something that will happen. This is still a game where the replay value is limited. It is a game that, like many narratives, sort of consumes itself. You cannot find the first high again if you ever had a first high playing with this game. But if you did, well, it's hard to recover that, because once you know certain secrets and certain paths then become always accessible, the surprises not there anymore, and so the interest in the game is reduced. But compared to its brother Stowaway 52, Jump Ship is a much better game. It's definitely the better of the two. The theme is more fun, the decisions are more interesting, there are decisions that matter as opposed to simply memorizing what cards have already been there. Sometimes, yes, you will make decisions simply based on the fact that you remember the certain cards that already been used and you do not want to go overboard and be forced to go to Mermaid Beach early. But other than that, there are still decisions that are interesting, and the random element adds a whole different dimension to the game. Still, I think that I want to see where the Card Adventures line goes, and I still think that there's a potential here that hasn't been tapped. Something is still missing for this game to be great, even to be a great filler, even to be a great simple choose your own adventure. There is a potential here in storytelling through cards that has not been fully developed. Of course, there are games that tell stories through cards, and Lord of the Rings, the card game, would be one such game, but also it comes with a lot of complexity, with intricate turn structure that takes committed gamers to perform. You have to spend time and money to create good decks. So I think that there's still a potential for simple narrative games where the story is told through cards, where you would pick up a box, open it, and start playing right away without having to commit to anything else. I think it can be done. I hope in future installments or Card Adventures games do that. I don't think we're quite there yet. This is a much better game than the previous one. Per se, however, it's an okay game. It's barely an okay game in my opinion. Jump Ship by Card Ventures. Not great implementations of a system, of the Card Venture system so far, but it has potential. I think the system has potential, and I want to see where it goes in the future games in this line.